we're really getting actual Danganronpa content in big 2025. Is that not crazy? My name is Not Pockets from the Pockets YouTube channel. Hi, nice to meet you. And this has been a bi-yearly video series I've made since 2019, and I've been in the community for even longer than that. I'd long since made my peace that Danganronpa fans weren't gonna get anything substantial, potentially ever again. And not only was I wrong once, but I was wrong twice. In the same year. I'm of course referring to both the 100 line and Danganronpa 2x2. So let's address the giant elephant in the room right now, which is Danganronpa 2x2. First of all, I'm gonna call it 2x2, not 2x2, but you could go the ultimate rage bait route and call it Danganronpa 2-2 in the same way that people refer to Hunter x Hunter. I don't mind the title being 2x2 since it's the second iteration of the second game, but some people have deluded themselves into thinking it's 2x2, and that means it's secretly Danganronpa 4? It reminds me of how people deluded themselves into thinking, or maybe they were just really hoping, that Danganronpa S was secretly going to be a proper full-length Danganronpa game, which we know now was not the case. But what we do know for certain is that Danganronpa 2x2 is a remake of Danganronpa 2 with an additional second scenario that's brand new. So it contains the entirety of Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair as we know it today, with the same plot, same script, same characters, but it also contains an alternate scenario that's going to have different killers, victims, plot, and maybe the characters will even be a little different too. I'm sure everyone's well aware of what Danganronpa 2x2 is at this point, but I'd like to talk about the development behind it. Particularly, the main writer for 2x2 being Yoichiro Koizumi, not Kodaka Kazutaka, as it always has been. Yoichiro was the guy behind the writing for Danganronpa S Summer Camp, but they also worked on Danganronpa V3, Somnium Files, and 100 Line. To what capacity he worked on these other games, I don't know. And I never played Summer Camp because I don't hate myself enough to play even more of the board game than I already have. That's needlessly harsh of me to say, and I'm largely exaggerating, but I think the general consensus is that Summer Camp is not that great. Obviously, I urge you to think for yourself, stand on your own opinions, but I've heard some amount of pessimism going into the new game because Kodaka isn't the one writing it. Despite that, I'm pretty optimistic. I think there's some elements of Kodaka's writing that bothers me, so I'm not going to be z***ing Kodaka off and acting like it can't possibly work without him writing it. The challenge, however, is that Kodaka is the one who created these characters, and now it's up to Yoichiro Koizumi to utilize them in ways that are different, but still feel appropriate for the characters we all know and love. Like when Hiyoko sacrifices herself in order to save Mikan's life, the fans are gonna be like, she would never do that! But Kodaka is still involved as a supervisor on Dangan 2x2. I have no idea to what level, considering he'd been working on the 100 line and Shoot in Order simultaneously. That being said, I think it'll be fine. What's weird though is the studio Gem Drops is listed as the developers of this remaster and Spike Chunsoft is the publisher, when previously Spike Chunsoft was both the developer and publisher of Danganronpa. I suspect this is most likely because Gem Drops is doing the heavy lifting for all the updated art and visuals, and that's why it's listed as such. Personally though, I don't really care who makes Danganronpa as long as the music bangs, the characters are fun, and it's got lots of drama. Then I'm in. The fact that there's so many popular fan games proves that the community likely feels the same way. Honestly, I'd have preferred to see Danganronpa 4 rather than a remake, but let's be honest. Danganronpa 2 kinda looks like poop, so it feels appropriate to make it more vibrant. All this to say, I'm very interested in seeing how this game comes out. I have faith it could be good, but as Donkey once said, what it could be, or what it will be. Make your move. Now let's talk about the 100 line, the other Danganronpa type game that has already come out. It's not a Danganronpa game, but it's still reasonable to compare the two franchises, considering it shares the same writer, illustrator, and composer. Although I'm still not at the point where I can do that, considering I only have 25 endings out of 100, and I've got 200 hours in this game. The reason it's taking me so long is because I streamed all of what I've played so far. I've been wasting so much time reading out dialogue that even the writers didn't find important enough to have voice acted, because it's just not reasonable to voice everything, but that's what I was doing. At some point, I'll put together a dedicated video for that, and I'll do a proper review with my thoughts once I've reached all 100 endings, but at the current point, I can't speak much about the game. I had done a video leading up to the release of the 100 line, and in it I mentioned how I hadn't played Raincode, and I am pleased to announce I have played Raincode. I even streamed the whole thing. I came in with average expectations, and I left pleasantly surprised. It's a pretty competent little mystery story. I really appreciated the pseudo open world environments, even though functionally it could have just been a railroaded experience. I thought Shinigami would be really annoying with her constant innuendos, and while she is sometimes, it honestly didn't bother me that much. There is one point in the game where I thought to myself, wow, Kodaka really must have listened and done better when it comes to characters cross-dressing. And then immediately he proved me completely wrong, and I just sat there. I felt like the biggest idiot in the world. Raincode has like one of the best characters in Spike Chunsoft history, with Halara Nightmare, and then a character so ass that it gives Haiji Toa a run for his money, with Detsuhiko Thunderbolt. In more recent news though, there's also Shuten Order, which came out a few months ago. It seems to be catered more to a Japanese speaking audience rather than an English speaking audience. There's also no English voiceover from what I've heard, and I've seen some complaints about the translation, but I might check it out further down the line. I just have too much on my plate right now with 100 line, plus I still haven't finished the second Somnium Files yet, and now there's a third one, so it's like, damn. There's like games that I could play. There is no shortage of options nowadays. When 10 years ago, if you beat Danganronpa and you ask people, what should I play now? People would say, Zero Escape, Ace Attorney, and really that was about it. You would have to really scrounge around to find a game that could scratch that same Danganronpa itch. Needless to say, Danganronpa fans are eating good nowadays. While 100 line is its own thing that offers something different, there's a lot of overlap in it being very heavily character focused. I think that's one of Kodaka's strongest suits, those compelling character moments. However, Kodaka isn't the only person capable of making good Danganronpa content, since we also have two large noteworthy fan games to talk about. There's an abundance of fan games, and I don't mean to downplay any other fan projects, but I'm talking about Project Eden's Garden and Danganronpa Kill Cure. Both of these are playable games. Eden's Garden is up to chapter 1 and Kill Cure is in its prologue. It's nice to finally see these big ticket fan games being released in some capacity. I plan on checking them out when they're finished, which should be about 2035, but I've heard very good things about both, and that cheeses me. Especially considering Kill Cure was one of the games that I covered all the way back in 2019. Speaking of games that aren't finished yet, Your Turn to Die still isn't finished. I'm honestly looking forward to the completion of Your Turn to Die more than anything else because it's truly that good. There was an update in February 2025 that said, yep, we're working on it, which is exactly what they said last year. So I mean, yeah, I still figured you guys were working on it. But then, last Christmas, they said, we really wanted to have it done by 2025, but that just wasn't in the cards. So I'm hoping that means it'll be finished in 2026. Either way, you can still play it for free in your browser. You can get caught up to chapter 3B. That's where we're at right now. What are you waiting for? Go play it. It's like everything I could ever want in a Danganronpa game. The only reasonable excuse you can make to not play this game is if you're waiting for it to be fully completed. That's the only excuse I'll accept. And I hope that you don't have to wait long because I think everyone should fucking play this game. I've been saying it. I'm still gonna keep saying it I'm gonna keep saying it as many times as I have to until you play it. And speaking of things that I said in the past, last year I was like, there really aren't any Danganronpa YouTubers. And I think that was partly because I personally wasn't seeking out Danganronpa content. Since then, I've talked to and met a bunch of really cool Danganronpa YouTubers that I didn't even know were still pushing that boulder alongside me. They were always there, I just wasn't aware of them at the time. So shout out to them, shout out to you guys in the community watching this video, still interacting and talking about Danganronpa. I don't know how many games have a lifespan like this, and we're so privileged to be in a position where everyone gets to experience a brand new Danganronpa game like 15 years after the original. There's been so many different waves of Danganronpa fans that have come and gone over the years, so it's crazy that everyone can experience a new game for the first time at the same time. I know for Danganronpa V3, the Japanese version came out like months before the English version. This kinda segmented the community between the people who were waiting for the localized version and those who were frothing at the mouth and just consumed it in Japanese. I really hope this time both versions come out at the same time so we don't have people casually spoiling things before the majority of people can even play it. Even if we hadn't gotten any Danganronpa news this year, I'd have come out of 2025 with a much more positive outlook on the community and franchise than I had in previous years. Now it's amplified by something we can all rally behind. Plus, a bunch of the large OG Danganronpa YouTubers will likely make a comeback for a bit in order to play Danganronpa 2x2. So we're kinda back. It's crazy, just 1 year ago, I had maybe 100 subscribers, and now I'm over 10K. It's really kind of inflated since most people just subscribe for the YouTube shorts, and while there's nothing wrong with that, you should also check out the Danganronpa wrestling video, because that shit took me like 30 hours to make, at least. In Danganronpa 2019, I first compared the wait between games to the Persona franchise, and how they had to wait 8 years between Persona 4 and Persona 5. I said that we might beat them, and at first I was like, haha, we win! We waited 9 years! However, I neglected to account for them taking even longer between Persona 5 and Persona 6, which doesn't exist yet. Persona 5 came out in 2016, which was before Danganronpa V3, so unfortunately, Persona still wins in the end. Although they did get Metaphor ReFantasio last year, and whether you consider that a Persona game, I'm not qualified to answer. In Danganronpa 2021, I said that I don't really mean this, but I almost hope Tribe 9 and Death March Club flop so that they feel forced to return to Danganronpa. Am I a prophet or a witch who cast a curse on them? If so, that's my bad. As of the end of this year, Tribe 9 has been shut down. It must not have done as well as they expected, and I'm not a gacha expert to diagnose the reasons it failed. I played it for a bit. I thought it was fine, but maybe it was just too niche. The gacha market is really saturated right now, so it's kind of like the only thing it has going for it are the characters and the story. They're still going to publish what they wrote for the story despite the shutdown, so that's cool of them. And now we get more Danganronpa, yippee! In Danganronpa 2023, I joked about Danganronpa VTubers, which I still think it was a good idea for the record, but the VTuber boom is kind of settled down, and now it's more of a medium to create content rather than it being a genre itself, which is a pretty natural progression for that sort of thing. I've seen a lot of VTuber orgs step down or disband or fucking explode, so it probably wouldn't have been sustainable long term if they actually listened to my idea. But once again, I am a prophet. Tukio Games made a VTuber for April Fools. They were a Japanese VTuber who only streamed a few times, but she was real. She really existed. They really did it. There's still hope, however. It's not too late to put me on payroll and allow me to be an international ambassador for your company. If you need me to do voice work for Side Slop Character 32B, just let me know, man. You've got my information. My business email is notpocketsbiz@gmail.com, and alternatively, you can find me live on YouTube. I'm currently playing through Somnium Files' Nirvana Initiative, and I've been enjoying it. Boss is the best character, for reasons that should be quite apparent when I tell you my favorite Spike Chunsoft characters are Kyoko Kirigiri, Hiroko Shizuhara, and Halara Nightmare. So if you are over the age of 30 and have cosplayed these characters, you also have my business email. Otherwise, thank you all for your time. This has been Not Pockets from the Pocketless channel, signing out for the night. Bye!